But when he says stay the night, and she's like, "Fuck this, thanks for the Hoover." And then the next day, she invites him over, and she has a daughter, and it's like, "Oh, well, you do have sex." Like,
No, that's not the point.
I
Finally
watched.
I finally
Watched. I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
finally
Watched.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. I'm Milan,
and this is David.
and I guess I finally watched once.
Yeah, that's how it works. I saw this movie a few years after it came out. Bought the DVD. Maybe my friend did. So my friend Zach, who you've met, made me watch it. And 30 seconds in, I was like, I can't understand a word these fuckers are saying.
Thank God, because I had the same note.
Could we turn on the subtitles? And he said, no. My professor, whatever, because I think he saw it in a film class, was like, you have to watch this movie without the subtitles to get the real experience, which I was like, I don't agree
That's
with at all.
That's the dumbest thing I've possibly have ever heard.
So I will say, though, watching it this time with the subtitle, I'm going to tell Zach you said that, but watching it this time with the subtitles,
I mean, that's more of a hit to his professor than him.
well, he agreed with it. He made me do it.
Yeah.
Watching it this time with the subtitles, it was one of those things where it was like I could hear it very well because I could read it at the same time.
Right.
But when I like blocked it with my hand, I was like, I don't know what they're saying again. Like,
I mean, I didn't really have a problem with that for the rest of the movie, but the beginning was horrible.
that is true. With I guess the guy was a heroin addict.
Is
But
that who you are today?
that's the title of my character in this. So watched it, thought it was really great. This is one of those movies though where I think the soundtrack sort of, this is almost made for the soundtrack. This movie.
At times, it felt like this actor used this movie as his career projectile as a musician.
Well, so he was a musician. I think was probably relatively famous before this, but this obviously blew him up. The director came to him, talked him into it, and I think the original idea at one point was they were just going to print DVDs and he could sell them at concerts. Like they had no thought of how well this would do. So at one point, and I'm sorry, I'm going to monologue for a little bit. They had Cillian Murphy was going to be in the starring role with Glenn Hansard still doing the songs. And then Cillian backed out reportedly because he was like, I don't know that I can handle, like, I'm not a musician. I don't know that I can do what, that guy can do. So the money, the budget was severely slashed. And this became like $150,000 movie. And, the hopes for it were lowered greatly. Ended up making,
so it's slashed because of Cillian Murphy
because he left.
backing out. That's crazy because I would think if they had a set budget for Cillian Murphy and Cillian Murphy backing out, I'd be ecstatic because I'd be like, oh my God, we have so much money that we don't now have to spend on Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think that happens a lot where you lose the star.
If he's like attached to it with only a certain number of like much money, and then if he's not attached with it, that money goes away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that happens all the time. So this ended up making $23 million and then won an Oscar for Best Original Song. So obviously everything worked out. I've actually seen, but that's not even the only banger in this. The other one that he sings is I can't think of the name right now, but the one he sings
later on in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many of them, but there's one other one that's like kind of to me with it. But I've seen him live. And then he came to Jacksonville, and then he came to Atlanta. I didn't even know about it, but I think it was when I was living there and my friends came up and saw him again, or a couple times in Atlanta. He's great live.
Yeah.
So, and I think these two actually, first of all, actually dated for a little bit and then toured for a little bit. They did a CD together, which I have not listened to. Presumably pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, this is interesting in that you made the joke that it looks like a home movie, but this sort of became like a phenomenon a little bit. 23 million is not crazy, but 23 million on that budget, winning an Oscar for that song, they're pretty huge.
Yeah, so I've never heard of this movie and I've really never heard of the song. I'm sure I've heard the song, but a connection never came to mind, right? So we're sitting here, my wife and I, watching the movie, and it's the part where he's introducing her to Falling Slowly. And all he does, he sits at the piano with her and he's like, dun 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 dun. Taylor goes, "Oh fuck. Is this the Falling Slowly movie?" And I mean she was watching it with me, right? She's never seen the movie. I was like, "Yeah, I guess. I don't know, whatever." Uh and she goes, "I had an ex-boyfriend back in high school
I
that
knew it was this.
loved this movie." And I was like, "Oh, if it makes you feel any better, I'm not crazy about it so far." And she's like, "It doesn't make me feel better. But what makes me feel worse is that I actually like it."
She didn't watch it with him?
No, 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 no. But this is something that he like played in the car with them. He was like, I've never seen Garden State, but Garden State, I imagine, is like the American version of this fucking movie. A little bit maybe, but like fuckboys like it. And I imagine Taylor's ex was a fuckboy, probably.
Her her current paramour's a fuckboy a lot of times too.
Thanks. Anyways, I could see like really like pretentious people liking Garden State and this movie, which explains why you suggested it. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be another Monsters. Like this is gonna be a thing, right? I'm just gonna, all right, it's low budget. Here we go, David. Let's watch this thing, right? I teared up at the end. I was like, damn it. I was like, it's actually really good. And like, I don't think if the, by the way, second film we've done with a musical, I did not have the two mains getting together at the end.
Yeah.
And I didn't know
definitely good we did this right after La La Land.
I didn't know I couldn't handle this. Like I I didn't break down in tears, right? But I was just like, oh man, I teared up in La La Land, very emotional. And then you send me this one. I was just like, God damn it, David. God damn it.
Well, I think you also cried at the end of Amelia Perez, if I remember correctly, too. So
I cried because it was so bad I wanted to kill myself. No, the thing about so I mean, Taylor had some history about it, but nothing too big. But it is funny how she recognized it off of this song. Like this song was like the thing that made this movie recognizable.
The other song, by the way, When Your Mind's Made Up, I think is really good.
I'm just saying this movie ain't winning anything for cinematography.
Well, no, it's shot with like a home video camera. And I guess it was shot sometimes with long lens cameras because they didn't have the permitting.
It felt like a very like run and gun sort of movie.
The one scene where they first go to the cafe and they're inside the cafe, I was like, did they ADR their dialogue afterwards, or did they just have like microphones hooked up to their like lapels so they could hear them? Because it's shot from outside, but they're inside. And I was like, it could be ADR, but I can also hear background noise. But I was like, but they could have piped that in too. There's no way for me to know this. But I was like,
Yeah.
It looked cool. Like it was a cool little touch for a movie where you're like not getting a lot of those because of the budget.
The one that really occurred to me was when she comes out of the bodega and all those like little girls in roller skates were basically like waiting outside for her to finish shooting. It felt like a really quick, hey, can we shoot in your bodega for like 15 minutes? And they like told all the customers to like wait outside. And then as soon as she left, they all just kind of came back in. That's the only time it really felt like they were doing something without a permit and quickly.
Yeah, well, the opening scene where he's busking and the dudes come up and he's like, I know you're gonna steal from me. He's like, no, I'm not gonna steal from you. And like, I guess you find out later that they actually know each other, like went to school or something together. So that dude grabs his case and runs off. Some random passerby kneed the guy in the groin to try and stop him because they didn't know it was a set.
I wondered if something like that happened. I thought at first maybe everyone was an extra, and then quickly realized like another minute into the movie, I'm like, oh, they just guerrilla shot this entire thing.
It is also funny too. So a lot of foreign movies, this one is no exception, are funded by like a government entity.
It's like a grant.
Yeah, so this got a grant for 150,000. I know Korea is big on that too because Bong Joon-ho's talked about it, and just tons of countries.
Yeah, Atlanta says they're great on it, but I've never seen it.
But okay, so but you'd think the country is like, hey, yeah, we want you to shoot this, but then you still got to deal with like the local municipalities about shooting and permits and stuff, and it's like the fucking federal government told us we could make this movie,
Yeah.
and now you're telling me we can't.
You know what? Why were we just not good enough friends when I was shooting my movie in Atlanta?
You just
That
never asked.
I never invited you to set?
You asked me for money, but you did not ask me to help, except for like some voice acting at the end.
I asked you for money?
No, you handed me the thing that was like you could donate, and I just forgot to donate to you.
Oh, you didn't. You didn't deserve to be on the set. You could have donated the highest tier and then been invited on the set. That's probably what I was waiting for.
Yeah, but unless I was gonna get a role in the movie, I really didn't see.
I mean, the whole role is about. Well, you got like the third most important role.
What if I just was on set and was like, "Hey, listen, man, I don't think you're not really doing it well. I think Alon wants to make a change," and you're just like, "Wait, what are you doing?" It's like I'm just like gonna steal the part.
You're just kneeling. It's not even Michael. You're just talking to the dog.
I'm talking to the dog.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're just not convincing. So, I think we can start. By the way, Garden State came out 2004, so this was stealing off Garden State. Oh, before we do start.
Oh no, of course it did. Because, well, also the thing that you said about stealing the role of my movie from the dog reminded me of that Elijah Wood show Wilfred,
Uh-huh.
where you just dress up in a dog suit, but like everyone acts like you're just a dog.
Might have been a better movie.
Actually, you know what? Might have been.
We can still redo it. This, we did this.
I'll call Michael Gampion.
We did this a while back. This reminds me of a movie in a little bit of an odd way, but Lost in Translation, in that you sort of have this age gap romance. And in Lost in Translation, it's a little unclear if it's actually a romance. And in the end, it's like left open to interpretation a little bit, although I think it kind of was. But it's like this relationship where they both know they shouldn't do it because of the age gap, because of like, they have other people in their lives. So like he has this woman he wants to chase to London. She has her husband. Bill Murray's married in Lost in Translation. She's, I think, married too to Giovanni Ribisi. So, and then it just sort of ends with them like realizing like, oh, this can't happen or whatever.
I think the age gap in Lost in Translation is quite a bit more than this one. I'm guessing she's like 25, 26, and he's like 36, 37.
He's 36. She was 17 when they filmed it.
You're shitting me.
No, yeah, she doesn't look that young.
Not any offense to her as an actress at all. I didn't imagine that they would try to do like an underage thing in this movie.
I don't think they were, because you don't know what age she's playing.
Well, that's true too, but it puts in a whole new perspective that the kid, her ex or her current husband, because she mentioned there was an age gap between him and her, and then we see him, right? We see him later on in the movie, and I was like, oh, that's not that. That's like the same age gap they have, maybe.
But I mean, I also think she could be playing a 25, 26-year-old.
No, exactly. It's not like her husband walks in and it's like, Robert De Niro, and I'm like thinking, oh my God, she was like molested.
So I only looked into this because at one point he says, "Oh, when I was your age," she's like, "Yeah, you're an old man now," and I was like, they kind of look like they could be around the same age. And
they were like being funny.
No, yeah, and he was 36 and she was 17. I was like, that's pretty. And they did start dating during this movie, which is another thing, but that's whatever. Not going to judge.
I need to put the like the shotgun sound effect in here.
I don't know. She still speaks pretty glowingly of him. So, and he's an amazing artist. I'm gonna let it go. But that Lost in Translation thing to me, I think, it like really kept sticking with me. Although this is getting a little bit ahead. At one point in the movie, because I thought it was a little unsaid, her feelings of him. But then in the end, she's like, "Oh, we could, we would just do hanky panky." And he's like, "Hanky panky," and she's like, "What? It would be fun." At one point, when they're on this like sort of hillside to the water, he says, "How do you say, do you love him?" in Czech? And she tells him, and he says, "Do you love him?" And she responds back in Czech, and we don't know what she says.
Yeah.
She says, "I love you."
Oh.
So,
Well,
you
shout
know.
out to all the checks out there, man.
And you brought up La La Land, but this totally reminds me of La La Land again in that this is a very important relationship for these two, but just circumstances they're not supposed to end up together. But it's like not sad at the end. It's like really meaningful, and like then they move
Yeah.
on with the rest of their lives.
Well, he was like, at the end of the movie, he's like, I guess I'm going to go to London. She's like, yeah, I guess you're going to go to London. And I'm like, he's not going to London. He goes to London. And I was quite unimpressed with his decision of going to London.
She's the
Like, she had,
opposite of Garden State.
I don't know what happened in the Garden State, man. Don't ruin it for me. Okay.
We're doing Garden State?
There's a garden. There's a state. I think it's called New Jersey.
No, we're doing Garden State if you haven't seen it.
I know. We'll do it. We'll do it one day. We kind of have our months packed, man. So I think the big question is this is musical month. We're doing musicals. Is this a musical?
Well, you and I had an audible call today where you decided we needed to do a jukebox musical.
Well, I was thinking because we've done
No, you don't have to go through the whole list. We don't have to.
No. I'm just saying the idea was that we already did or plan to do different types of musicals within the musical genre. I thought a jukebox musical would be fun to put in this, menagerie.
Menagerie.
Yeah, I was putting a little
You
accent on
but
it.
you said it like menage a trois. But this is kind of
like lingerie.
This is kind of a jukebox musical.
We did talk pretty philosophically about what makes up a jukebox musical. Is it a jukebox musical if it's all by the same guy starring the guy?
I think the only reason this wouldn't be a jukebox musical, but I don't know if that's definitionally makes sense, is that the songs were made for the movie.
Yeah.
Which was Moulin Rouge. Is that the way Moulin Rouge was done, or are those famous songs done in the movie?
Those are famous songs done in the movie.
To me, a true jukebox musical has to be the songs already need to be famous. So I think this doesn't. But this is like almost reverse engineering that, where they're like, let's make a movie
to make these songs famous.
Which is the whole point of them saying like, oh, we'll just sell DVDs at the concert. Like, hey, you enjoyed that music? Here's a movie we made around it, which is actually a cool idea.
It is a cool idea, but even better is that the fame that the song itself got, Falling Slowly, from this movie, it would be cool years down the road that a jukebox musical would be made where one of the songs within the musical is Falling Slowly.
Also, Falling Slowly, like a perfect wedding song.
Yeah.
So like it has that life too.
Yeah, that's true. And so when we were talking about jukebox musicals, we also kind of settled on the fact that if it's a musical biopic about the person's songs that this was, then it also cannot be considered a jukebox musical. Like Bohemian Rhapsody, like Rocket Man, like recently came out Better Man.
I would say that if I think a biopic just inherently isn't a musical, because I mean, like, but I haven't seen Rocket Man, right? And I haven't seen Better Man, but I did.
Have you seen any men?
I saw Bohemian Rhapsody. That you're seeing like the studio sessions or whatever. You're seeing how the songs are created. You see the Live Aid concert. But if Better Man in making it, or Rocket Man, if the character just breaks out into song in a way that is not normal to like an everyday living, then I think you could consider that a jukebox musical.
It's a musical for sure. Now, if you want to argue, is Bohemian Rhapsody
I don't think
musical?
I don't think that is.
Just a musical? No?
I think it's a movie about music. I don't think it's a musical.
I kind of agree with you here, but I think Better Man does break out, but it's all of his songs about his life, and they come out as he's progressing through the life of which he makes them, right? I think that's a musical. I do not consider it a jukebox.
I actually think it might be, though. But you also don't like the fact that, you don't like Mamma Mia and just it's all ABBA, so.
No, I love first of all, I love Mamma Mia. Okay. Second of all, I wouldn't consider a jukebox musical because it's a musical around specifically on purpose ABBA.
because it's one artist.
Yes.
So then this wouldn't. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Irrelevant. I think we can probably.
I think this even teeters on not even being a musical is my point. And I really felt like that in the beginning because the only times we ever saw him singing is he was playing and other people were aware, and so was he, that he was singing. And the few times that it started to kind of become a musical is when she's in the gas station late at night.
Yeah, I agree.
And I felt like that was a musical number, right?
Yes.
And then also,
Even though it's practical.
even though it was practical, I still felt like that counted. And then I felt like whenever he sung and we cut to a montage of them hanging out, I felt like that was counting towards it also.
What about when he's singing that song I was talking about earlier? I think when your mind's made up, and
Right.
it's the flashback of his ex. I think that is kind of close too.
I think you're right. Yeah. So I think it's enough of that for me to be comfortable with saying that that's a musical, but it's a different type of musical than we've been doing.
I didn't think it was a musical. This is me sneaking one past the goalie with you not noticing. Similar to Monsters that you brought up when that was not actually a horror movie, and I made
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
score
I
one
gotta
for
watch
me
out. I gotta
again.
watch out for you. But from everything I've said and from watching it again, would you say maybe actually it is more of a musical than we previously thought?
I thought it was a musical when we went into it, and then after watching it, I was like, it sort of is. It's very much on the line. IMDb says it is because originally I wanted to do Begin Again, which is not a musical, and IMDb does not say it's a musical. It's directed by the same guy who kind of has a thing because he did this movie once, Sing Street, and then Begin Again, all surrounding music. And I guess he was in a band with Glenn Hansard at one point.
That makes
So
sense.
it's kind of his thing. It's close, and I don't know. It's like the exception that proves the rule kind of thing. Like it feels like a musical, even though it doesn't really meet like my stringent definition of what I think when you say musical is I think of like the sound of music.
Yeah, or like when two characters are talking and then all of a sudden, you hear, "What do you mean she doesn't have a boyfriend?"
You know, it's definitively a musical. Amelia Perez. There's no question that
There's no question that that's a musical.
That's a musical.
That's a musical.
I think we should go through this now. It'd probably be pretty quick. So we already talked about the opening scene, and then we get to hear his next song. He's just playing it at night. The woman walks up, sort of their meet cute moment where she's like, I love that song. Why don't you play it during the day? And he's like, you love the song. You gave me 10 cents. He's like, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but you gave me 10 cents. Like, I can't live off of this.
Times are tough. I was kind of wondering. I was like, because I read the little intro synopsis. Thank you. And I was like, oh, it says something like these two make music together, and then it represents their growing love. And I was like, is this the girl that he makes music with? Because he's kind of fucking rude to her, and I wouldn't be surprised if this chick never shows up in the movie again.
Well, what's interesting is, obviously neither of them are like classically trained actors. I think Glenn's pretty good. She is playing such an odd character. There's also like a tiny bit of a language barrier, but she's got this thing about her where she's like sort of pushy. She doesn't really get upset about like him kind of talking shit to her. Like she almost either pretends to not understand it or like whatever. But then she's like, "Oh, you're going to fix my vacuum." You know what I mean? Like, so she plays like a very interesting, quirky character.
Yeah. I mean, knowing nothing about these actors, I can't even say that, oh, maybe they're just playing themselves. Because I have nothing really to go off. Is she even Czech?
She's something.
Yep.
Probably. I don't know. So this is her first and only role. This was his first role since like 1991, and I don't think has done really anything since. And his role in 1991 sort of ends with him busking on the street singing. So people are like, oh, it's like an unofficial, sequel or whatever. It's just continuation. But the conversation ends with her finding out he fixes vacuums, and she's like, I'm going to bring my Hoover to you. And I like, her cursing is always funny because you don't really expect it coming from her. Just like this like petite woman that's all wrapped up in her coat and like, what's wrong with it? It's fucked. Like that's my technical jargon. It's like, it's just fucked. So then they meet the next day where, they go to lunch or maybe they go to lunch the next day, and she's just dragging around the vacuum, and he was like, "Oh, can we, we'll work on it. I'll work on it another day." And she's like, "You work on it now? I brought it now. We had a conversation last night where you like told me to bring it, so let's work on it now." But then we go to the piano shop where we get to hear her play, which is a very cool scene, and I love the payoff at the end of that. So just
Yeah.
like a lot of like good, scenes starting out, them meeting each other.
She is Czech.
We next get to when they are on the bus and he's just doing kind of the ad-libbing songs, which was just ad-libbed and they kept it in.
I thought it was pretty good.
Hoover Fixer, Sucker Guy, and then Fuck Her, She's Gone Forever song. And you can actually hear people on the bus laughing.
He's gone. Oh, yeah, because you only see the woman, right? The old woman.
Right.
Who was like, I like when he's like, yeah, she's gone. And she's like, she dead? He's like, no, she's just gone.
Just gone. Just out of my life.
And then we find out that she's a cheating whore.
Oh, that woman? Yeah. I thought you were talking about the girl. Her name is just the girl in this. She doesn't have a name.
Her actress name is Marketa.
That is correct. Yeah, that's her real name, not her actress name. So they go to the dad's, fix the vacuum, and she's like, "Your son is very talented." And he's like, "He should be. I taught him everything." And she's like, "No, at singing." He's like, "Oh, really?" Like he didn't even know. Which once again, really cool payoff at the end with the dad.
Yeah.
So then they're up in his room, and he's like, "Stay the night."
Oh, you missed the part where he was like, "Oh, we'll fix you." She's offering to pay for the vacuum fix, and he's like, "No, it's fine." And the dad's like, "Nah, it'll be £4."
I actually thought that was a nice little bit where like he doesn't want her to pay a lot because he knows she can't, but he also can sense in her she's like got this pride about her of like
right.
I don't take handouts, so he's like, just €4, like that'll do. You know what I mean? It's whatever. Just to make everyone feel good.
Yeah.
But when he says stay the night, and she's like, "Fuck this. Thanks for the Hoover." And then the next day she invites him over and she has a daughter and it's like, "Oh, well, you do have sex." Like,
no, that's not the point. The point is later on we find out she's actually married and her husband is like stuck in the Czech Republic.
He's not stuck. He just doesn't want to come over, and they're like sort of broken up because she's like, it's over. But that's also like at that point when you realize now that she kind of has a thing for him, it's like, oh, what does over mean?
Yeah. She seems really offended that he wanted to sleep with her. I thought he came up with the perfect explanation. He's like, "I'm lonely and you're really beautiful, so I'm sorry." And I was like, you know what? That would have worked on me.
You would have. What do you mean? You would have fucked him. So who knows?
Oh yeah.
So gives her the CDs that they had talked about, and gives her the player, and then walks with her, and then gets to go see her house. And this is when they decide, oh, you're going to write the song. And and we talked about this. I used to be romantic when I was your age. She's like, "Yeah, you're fucking old now," and he is. He's double her age. So
yeah, that's weird.
And then the funny thing when she steals from her daughter's piggy bank to buy batteries so she can write the song, it's a little like funny touch.
You know what's crazy now? She is now the same age as he was back then.
Because this is 18 years ago, almost 19. It is crazy, and he's old as shit now, even older than old as shit. And then the scene where she is walking down the street, sort of singing. We can hear it through the headphones as like everything's passing by. It's a really good scene. Like, and every time the music plays, this is an interesting one where it's like I just love all the music from it.
Well, it's not exactly like a great scene, right? Because it's like whatever's happening in the scene is quite simple. It's just the music is so good that it almost carries this entire film.
For sure. Absolutely. And then we get him writing a song as he's watching old videos of his ex, which I guess was the current girlfriend of the director. And the home videos in 2006 look so fucking horrible.
Yeah, because they were probably shot even before that.
I just remember now, I went on my senior trip in 2005 to New York City in high school.
New York City.
And I had a flip phone. And I had a picture of the Statue of Liberty from a ferry on my flip phone, and I just was like, "This is the worst thing ever." Like, it's just so
You
bad looking.
you want to see something that would absolutely age you? Go. When were you in like high school? What year were you in high school?
I just said senior year was 2005, so
2005. So even back then, like 2002, 2003. Um, look up on YouTube 2003 senior videos and schools like put them up, right?
yeah.
Oh my god. It's the fashion, the like the antics, the way that people like compose themselves. It's such a like a time capsule of a time that I did not feel like I lived in.
Well, because it doesn't feel that weird, like when you think back to it, and then when you see it, you're like, "Oh man, it was so different." But it doesn't feel
Man,
that different. But at the same time, it feels so different.
people really did wear short shirts on top of long shirts on top of short shirts, huh?
That's true. Yeah, popped collars. Remember
Uh,
popped collars?
like 6 of them. Yep, yep. You remember like well, people still wear Oakleys, but they really wore Oakleys back then.
Hollister,
Quick
Abercrombie.
Quicksilver, Roxy, the girl,
Pat. Well, everyone went to Pac Sun. That's where you did a lot of your shopping.
Urban Outfitters.
Urban Outfitters is still a thing now. That's more of a.
No, but
You're
I think
you're a little younger than me, so
they
it's
had like
it's,
these
it's fine.
rainbow styled flip flops. That was a big thing in my school. I don't know.
So he decides he's going to go to London, and he asks her to record songs with him. And so they go to this really nice studio, and it's $3,000, and she's like $1,000, and he's like, "What? No, no way." And she's like, 1,100, 1,200. That's the best I can do. And he said, "We can talk about 2,000." She's like, "No, we shake on 2,000." I could not help but think of Boogie Nights with them arguing over the demo tape to the guy that they couldn't afford the studio from.
I
John
thought
C.
what was
Riley and Mark Wahlberg.
I thought what was really cool is that she was cementing the deal not really on the money talk, but she was like, "Have you heard him sing? Like we'd be doing you a favor recording in the studio." And then
Absolutely.
she kind of does the same thing with the banker to give them the loan.
The Banker reminded me of. Have you seen Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
It just so much of that because they play it, and this should not work. You should not be able to get a $2,000 bank loan because you're going to make a CD, and then the guy breaks out. I don't know if it's his guitar or if it's he's borrowing the guitar from Glenn or whatever, but just starts playing a song, and they're just like,
I think he just pulled it out of his like under his desk. He's like,
they're like,
I had this.
they're like, "Oh, this is really really good." So gets the bank loan. Next, we get the dinner party, which apparently the actress Marquetta made all the food for. That's
Oh,
how
that's
low budget
nice.
we're going for on this.
Huh.
And it's a party where they just sing, just a singing party.
A troubadour party.
Then we have the motorcycle ride, which leads to the conversation. He finds out she's married, and I was just like, "Oh well, you're gonna have to find a ride back now that I know you're married." You know,
Yeah.
it's-
Well, I was even thinking she's like, "Oh, can I ride this? Can you teach me how to ride this?" Yeah, maybe if you weren't married, lady.
yeah, I'm not
Huh?
gonna.
Come
What?
on.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
What?
get anything from you. It turns out he could have, just didn't play it right.
Yeah.
So we get to the studio. The guy who's doing like the mixing does not give a shit about this. And then as he starts hearing the songs, he's like, "Oh, they're actually good."
Yeah.
Until the end, he's like into this, and he's like, "Oh, we can just keep going." They don't even sleep this weekend.
He before going to the studio, he needs like other members of the band, so he just grabs this other like troubadour troupe to like, "Hey, do you want to be in my band?" And even the girl was like, I don't know about these guys." He's like, no, they're good guys. They're good guys. I love like how ignorant they are. Like they're in the studio and he's like, "Well, do you want to do a sound test?" And the drummer guy is like,
We already
I
did it.
yeah, I played it. He's like, "Do you want to do a sound test through the mics?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah."
So as they're taking a break, he's like, "Oh, we'll go to London. We'll be in a band together. We'll do all this, like making plans." And then she's like, "Can my mom come?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is never gonna
It's
work."
never gonna work because of her mom. Yeah, I was so surprised that he never responded about her mom. I was like, that never even showed them having a problem. Him having a problem with her mom.
I think it's the daughter is the issue. Like your daughter, the mom has to come to help watch the daughter. Like everyone has to move. You know, it's the whole like village taking care of them. So and then
His
you got the
dad could come. His dad could hook up with her mom.
That's true. They'd probably, they'd probably make it work.
Yeah.
So then let's do the car test and then the beach montage. And then this final scene, this is like the Lost in Translation scene to me, where he's like, come back to my place, we can hang out. And she's like, oh, my husband is coming home, I can't. And then, she was like, it'd just be for hanky panky. And he's like, hanky panky, like, that's not what I'm saying. She's like, well, why not? It would be nice. It'd be some nice hanky panky. And then, ask her to come by later. And at that point, she's just like, yeah, sure. But she's never going to do it.
My favorite scene in the whole movie is, it's kind of that payoff too at the end of the movie, right? She sneaks into that other room in the studio and finds the Baldwin piano, a really beautiful grand piano, and he has her play something, and she breaks down in tears. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie, because then the payoff where at the end he buys her a piano. I mean, he fucking buys her a whole fucking piano, right? That's what got me. That got me.
Do you think she's crying, what, just because of life, or because she's like, I like this guy, but I can't say anything?
She's crying? You mean in the Baldwin with the grand piano? And she says something like she played this for her husband and he had no reaction.
That's right.
And he's an idiot.
Which is funny, because then the movie ends with like, oh, but she's going to go back to this guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad, right? It's supposed to be kind of sad. It's not as... I felt like the ending was sadder in this than in La La Land. Because in La La Land, it leaves you with some hope. For this, it's like he's going back to a cheating wench, and she's going to a guy who they share a daughter, but nothing else, right? And with the guy and the girl in this movie, the two mains, they share their love for music. And so I think it's more depressing in this film than it was for La La Land.
Yeah, but at least at the end of this, the husband is like rubbing her back while she's playing music.
Thank God, David. Thank God he rubbed her back.
Well, I was in the middle of talking. You want to make your silly little point, but it showed him being more supportive. You know what I mean? He's a changed man. I think
I like your little music box, honey.
Eastern Europeans and the Czechs in general are a hardened people. They've dealt with a lot. So I think, his softer side of loving her music, it's harder for him to bring that out. So I wouldn't judge him so harshly.
She's Czech too.
I know, but she's a woman. Women are softer. So also the playing music for the dad, I thought was very great. And he's like, it's fucking brilliant. And he's like, get the fuck out of my house. I don't want you living here anymore.
That was my second favorite scene.
It's a great scene. Yeah. Just really, it's a really well-written little movie, right? Like you're not really expecting that along with the music, but it is good.
It is, but there are some scenes that I was like, why is this in the movie? And it almost felt like it was running gun scenes, like, oh, we have a chance to shoot this. Why don't we just shoot it? Because we have the opportunity. There's our opening, right, to shoot it. One of his is she's like, I got to call my mom. And I would have just totally believed that she called her mom, right? We don't need to see her call her mom, but she's like, oh, I got to call my mom. It's at night. And it's like this shot where he's sitting down in the foreground and we see her on a payphone in the background. And then she finishes the call. She walks up to him and she's like, okay, I'm done. We can go. And he's like, cool. Like, what? It lasted like 15 seconds, but I just don't know why we needed that.
I agree. I think sometimes when you're making like a very small film, though, you're like, oh, well, we got to connect this scene, when you really just like, you could have just showed her, if you really want to show, you could be like, I have to call my mom. And then you see her walking away from the payphone. I mean, you do have Glenn in the foreground, sort of like kind of going through some emotions in his head. So I don't know, maybe that was the point of it, but
I guess, I don't know. And
that's the end of the movie. Yeah. He's going to London. She's back with her husband in their apartment. I guess she sells flowers. I kept thinking
she was going to look out the window and he was going to be on the street
with his dick out or something.
Well, it even pans to like across the street and like a bus pulling up. And I was like, oh, he's going to get out of the bus. And then a fade or a cut to black. And I'm like, the credits are rolling. And I'm like, he's going to show up any minute now. Any second.
Just wait for it, Taylor. It's going to happen.
He bought her a piano. And then that was just his like love letter goodbye. No one questions, oh, where did you get this very expensive piano? A- And then he's just like okay with just leaving her.
I don't know how expensive that piano could be because that guy didn't have any money, so it couldn't
Well, that's
be
my point.
too expensive.
Yeah.
With her salary from the movie, Marquetta bought Glenn Hansard a motorcycle. So that was her gift
Oh.
to him. Yeah. So some fun facts. So the title of this movie, Once, is like a reference to artists, like people that this guy knew who were like, once I get this together, I can really give my music career a chance. Just like kind of putting off your love for music because you got to make everything perfect. Marquetta had to get permission from her school in the Czech Republic to take time off to make the film because she was in high school. And the most expensive shot was a $2,500 crane shot for this movie. I wonder how much they got paid for this. You know, the two leads. Probably not a ton.
Probably not a ton. I mean, I don't know if SAG is a thing back there. Probably has an equivalency. Were they even part of it? Was it completely non-union? Because then I would have to guess probably like the equivalency of what $250 would equal.
Well, I mean, $250. That's like a daily rate. They shot this for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, what 5 days a week, 6 days a week? So it's probably somewhere around the ballpark of.
I'd say $5 to $10 grand is probably what they got paid.
Yeah, I was gonna say a little less, but yeah.
So this won the Best Oscar for Falling Slowly, Best Original Song. The song's eligibility was in dispute because the song had been written and composed for the movie, but it had a prior public exposure during the long period that the movie took to produce. The Academy ruled that it was minimal, though, even though this had happened to another song and they did not allow it to compete. But in this case, they're like, nah, it's fine. It could compete because it was written for the movie. It took so long for the movie to come out and they like played the song publicly and it kind of got big and then was featured in the movie. But they're like, nah, it's cool this time.
Was this movie nominated for anything else in the Academy Award?
I do not believe so. I think it's just the song.
I did read that it did win other awards
at other
festivals.
Yeah. That tends to happen with stuff. I think this movie holds up pretty well. It looks bad, but like not crazy bad. You can definitely tell
crazy bad. It's not crazy bad.
But it's a great story, great music. Taylor's ex-boyfriend be damned. Why'd she break up with that guy? He sounds lovely.
Yeah, I guess she just has a streak of dating guys with really good film taste.
Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched the musical Once.